أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وذكر فإن ذكرى تنفع المؤمنين صدق الله العظيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وارحم على عبدك ورسولك سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وسلم تسليما. I apologize for the delay. This is my very first time trying to use YouTube. I only wanted to broadcast audio, but we decided to use the YouTube platform because my understanding was that due to the current global events, this is the easiest and most accessible and the one providing the most bandwidth. But it turns out to be much more complicated than I could figure out. And it did not work from my laptop, and then they told me to try on my phone, and so I'm now doing it on my phone. Alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu wa salamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da amma ba'd. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Sadaqallahu al-azim. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik wa alham ala abdika wa rasulik Sayyidina Muhammadin Nabiyyil Ummi wa ala alihi wa sallim tasneema. Originally tonight I wanted actually not to talk about that illness that everybody in the world is talking about and reading about. But at the same time, as I mentioned to some friends who I addressed in Urdu a week or two ago, 1 week ago exactly, because this is what's on everybody's mind, then we want to try to find some way to understand this from the Deen of Islam. There are, mashallah, alhamdulillah, many ulama, shuyukh, scholars, thinkers who have written on this and spoken on this. And mashallah, I'm sure that many of you, or all of you actually, would have already read and heard many things that the ulama have had to offer. So I am not going to repeat many of the things that are being said. I just want to highlight a few points, and then we move on to our topic for tonight, inshallah. The first thing I want to really say is what a person should not think. Some mistakes that I've seen, but let's say misunderstandings that I've seen in some of the treatments of this coronavirus, in some of the ways it's being analyzed. So the first thing is that we are absolute slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no single one of us can lay any claim to understand the reason or wisdom or purpose behind any action of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is not correct to claim or to think or to suggest that this illness has come as some form of punishment for people who are not Muslim, because, well, there are many examples I can give you. One simple historical fact is that throughout Muslim history, throughout human history, there have been different plagues, illnesses, viruses that have spread in the world. And those of you who are following different ulama's talks on this, you would have seen that many ulama have pointed out that historically this happened even in the time of Sahaba Kiram radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajma'in. Millions of Muslims have passed away earlier in different plagues. Somebody sent me a excerpt from an Urdu writing of Shaykh Ashraf Ali Tanvir Mulatala. So apparently at that time, in the time of British colonial India, there was also not a plague, but an illness, some type of illness that was spreading, that was contagious. And many Muslims died in all of these different illnesses. And I would think that many of them were much more pious than you and me. So to suggest in any way that the coronavirus somehow discriminates and does not target Muslims would be incorrect. This would also be assuming things way beyond our right to assume. So this is one misunderstanding. A second misunderstanding is that tawakkul on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, means that we will not take the precautionary measures that are being recommended through sound medical advice. A third mistake, however, the flip side, is to use these terms such as common sense and rationality. So understand this, even in Western philosophy, Immanuel Kant, he wrote that common sense is the enemy of, I can't remember, common sense is the enemy of perfection or of truth. Common sense is not a basis of strong authoritative knowledge. Yes, the Deen of Islam has taught us, and from the classical and medieval period, the fuqaha did turn to experts, qualified experts in the field, and they would rely and depend on their knowledge, especially when those qualified experts were practicing pious Muslims, at least to the extent that they understood and respected the priorities and teachings of Deen. So therefore, the answer as to what exactly should be done, whether it's closing a masjid for Jummah Salah or any other thing, the first point of information that has to be sought is from not any doctor, not every doctor, senior experienced doctors who are particularly infectious diseases specialists and or senior public health professionals who are again practicing pious Muslims, at least to the extent that they understand and respect the priorities of the Sharia. Such doctors should be consulted and they should be asked, because although we do not know a cure for this virus and we do not understand a treatment for the virus, science does claim to know how the virus spreads. And these infectious diseases specialists are experts in that. And they're the ones who must decide and advise the ulama and muftis to what extent it is dangerous or less dangerous or outright critically dangerous to be praying in the masjid. And I'm sure there are doctors who are doing this individually, but it's important for the ulama to bring those doctors to the forefront. And rather than muftis coming alone on TV or digital media or writing essays and articles and opinion pieces on social media on their own, these should be co-authored or at the very least reference the medical expert opinion. But the point I wanted to make is that Deen is not simply going to follow common sense and rationality. So because I am not actually in touch myself with such a large number of ulama and infectious diseases specialists on this, so I'm not going to offer any fatwa or opinion on praying in the masjid. What I do want to say now to our listeners is that it is important for us to take every reasonable precautionary measure and understand that, for example, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to take care of ourselves, to take care of our health. There's a well-known hadith, not for Jummah particularly, but for other prayers, that even if it's raining, that a person can choose to stay home and not go to the masjid for jama'ah due to the rain. Now, if you want to analyze this hadith, the chance that you're going to die by walking in the rain for a few minutes is less than 1%. So it's not a question of probabilities, it's not a question of certain death. It is a question of even slightly developing a slight illness or slightly aggravating an existing illness. The hukum for Jummah is going to be different because praying Jummah is absolutely fard. Praying Jummah does not necessarily need to be prayed in the masjid, and praying Jummah can also be prayed by 4 people, one person who will give the khutbah and lead the salah, and at least 3 people following them. And in every situation, in every sense, that Jummah remains fard on every male who is resident in a particular place, unless they themselves have been diagnosed with this illness, or they feel there's a high probability that they are asymptomatic carrier of this illness, or they're in that elderly category which is of critical risk of this illness, because the overwhelming majority of men are interacting in groups of 2 to 3 to 4 people for many worldly functions, and therefore, even if you're a local masjid or all the masjids in your city have been closed for Jummah, whether because that was the decision of the ulama, or that was the decision of the government, or that was the decision of both, it does not mean, as fortunately the large overwhelming majority of writings that I've seen suggest, it does not mean that now Dhuhr is fard on you. The masjid being closed, all the masajid being closed in your city, simply means this, that Jummah is still fard upon you, and you must offer it with 3 other people in addition to yourself. And only when you're absolutely unable to do that, not offering Jummah in the masjid, when you're unable to offer Jummah with 3 other people, only then can you pray Dhuhr Salah. All right? So this is the one ruling I will give very, very clearly. And unfortunately, this one rule, because this is one ruling that I've yet to see stated so clearly. Okay, so we must turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make a lot of dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but not just to be saved from this illness. And we must think larger now. We must think larger. And we should imagine that you and me, alhamdulillah, the vast majority of humans and the vast majority of the ummah who Allah ta'ala has blessed in the following way, that they have not been affected by this illness. Statistically, unless you are in a particularly high-risk area, statistically, you and I have less than 1% chance of contracting this illness. And look at the level of worry that we have about it. And compare that. Now we should imagine, now use your statistics. Imagine how much worry those people must feel in their hearts who not 100%, not 1%, but 100% they're living the life of being a refugee. They're living a life of being a final stage cancer patient. They're living a life of being oppressed. They're of the millions of Uyghur Muslim Chinese, of the millions of Kashmiri Muslims, so we're talking about tens of millions of Muslims in the Ummah who are not in a 1% danger, not in a 1% chance of danger. They're absolutely in 100% danger, and in many times not even a 1% chance of that danger ending. So if we analyze in our hearts, those of us who are feeling some level of worry or anxiety, and I'm not saying that, that is a natural reaction that many people will have, but we should sit and reflect on those believers who for a long time, not for weeks or months as the current epidemic is, but perhaps for years, they have been living a life of being homeless, of being refugee, of being war afflicted, of being oppressed, of being wrongfully, unjustly imprisoned. And we should imagine then, now think what would have gone through their heart and their mind. And maybe reflect that indeed, this is a way we can remind ourselves of the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said that a person will be tested according to their iman. So if we are feeling so anxious and worried over the 1% danger of coronavirus affecting us individually, then yes, this is the test that's been given us. Our iman was not at that level that we could have been tested like those people who are in a 100% dangerous situation. So we should make a lot of dua for those who are 100% already afflicted, 100% with coronavirus, or 100% with disease, or 100% with injustice, war, oppression, etc. And we should make dua for them first. And then second, yes, we can and should make dua that Allah Ta'ala protect us, our family, our friends, our loved ones, the whole community, all of humanity from this illness. But then also, we should also make equally, if not much more actually, fervent dua that Allah Ta'ala protect us from so many other trials and tests and tribulations. And then infinitely more than that, we should make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from spiritual illness, from spiritual disease. And I'm not using this in some vague Sufi term. I'm talking about losing our iman, becoming distant from Allah Ta'ala, losing our salah, being lax in our zakah, missing out so many faraid and wajibat, abandoning the sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is the fear of that? How much in danger and a threat are we in that? Can anybody say I'm in 1% danger of missing a sunnah in the rest of my life? Can anybody say I'm not even in 1% danger of missing a fard salah for the rest of my life? And we are in danger of 1% contracting an illness, and we're making so many du'as for protection of that, and we're not making dua for protection of the 1% chance that I might yet do qaza of another salah in my life. I might sleep through another fajr and salah in my life. I might sleep before praying in my life, or even more than that, think of the akhirah. Am I in a 1% danger of Jahannam? Am I in 1% danger of adhab qabr? Am I in more than 1% danger of that? How many du'as am I making for that? And how many du'as am I making for the 1% chance that I may get coronavirus? So it's not about the numbers. I don't know what the percentages are, but the point is that we should realize and reflect. We should make all the du'as for all of ourselves, family, loved ones, community, humanity, to protect, that may Allah Ta'ala protect us from this virus. But at the same time, use this to reflect on so many other du'as, so many other feelings. Channel this energy. And this is true for so many aspects in our deen, that if we feel an emotion, that emotion, like everything else in us, our body belongs to deen, our mind belongs to deen, our emotions belong to deen. Our physical strength is for the sake of deen. Our emotional feelings are for the sake of deen. So if we have this emotional feeling of worry, concern, fear, any word, whatever emotion any individual is going through, okay, can I use this emotion? Can I channel this emotion in any sense for my deen? So I'm worried for my children. I'm worried that my children may catch coronavirus. I'm worried. I am worried also. All of you should be worried. But now I should channel that. And I should make sure that the same worry that I feel for my children about this one particular physical illness should be matched and then outmatched by the worry I feel for my children, that they may fall into bad character, or they may fall out of virtue, or they may fall out of practice, or they may fall out of iman. So we have to channel this feeling. We have to zoom out. We have to have balance. We have to have some sense of perspective. And the reason I'm saying this so forcefully is because this is what I feel is missing. There are either people who are extremely worried about coronavirus, or people who are at least posturing as if they have no worry about it whatsoever, and they even insist to shake your hand. Allahu Akbar Kabira. Ajib, and for somebody like me, and if you don't shake their hand, they start lecturing me what type of, you think you're an alim, you think you're a sheikh, which we're not, but because they think I think that, and then they'll start lecturing me that you don't have tawakkul, nothing will happen if I shake your hand, because Islam, I'm literally mentioning to you 3 conversations combined. I had the 3 same conversations people had with me on this topic, and you should know, and you should be telling the people that the virus only afflicts those who Allah Ta'ala wants it to afflict, and if Allah Ta'ala doesn't want it to afflict someone, it can never afflict someone, and if Allah Ta'ala wants it to afflict someone, not shaking hands will not be able to save that person. I guess maybe I should address this. This is another misunderstanding. Then this person should jump off the cliff and say whoever dies with only their death is due to the will of Allah Ta'ala. If Allah Ta'ala doesn't want somebody to die, they can jump off a cliff and still nothing can make them die. And if Allah Ta'ala wants them to die, they can stay on the top of the cliff and not jump, and still nothing will save them to death. It's the most foolish mantik, foolish logic I've ever heard. So this level of foolishness also, Allahu Akbar Kabira, it's a disservice. It's a disservice to Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And I imagine people are peddling this as some type of, that they're the true followers of the Sunnah. It's a disservice to Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who taught Sahaba Kiram, who are the greatest of mu'mineen, to tie your camel. He did not teach Sahaba Kiram that whoever's camel is Allah Ta'ala, it's in Allah Ta'ala's power, whoever's camel is going to be stolen. If you don't tie it, and Allah wishes it not to be stolen, it won't be stolen. If you tie it and Allah wishes it to be stolen, even tying it won't help you. That's not the hadith. Allahu Akbar. Ajib. So we must abandon all false posturing, all pretenses, all claims that we have the pious response, and we have the true tawakkul, and we have the true sabr. And so another, we should embrace our humanity. Khulqal insanu dha'ifa, that Allah Ta'ala made us weak. And maybe we should acknowledge that weakness. We should accept that weakness. We should embrace that weakness. And we should use that feeling also, channel that for our relationship with Allah Ta'ala. Present that weakness to Allah Ta'ala. Although we're weak, I'm weak, I'm physically weak. One microscopic organism can kill me. Allah Ta'ala, I'm emotionally weak. The 1% fear of a microscopic organism can make me scared. Allah Ta'ala, I'm spiritually weak. My reading all this nation is making me feel down and distant from you. Allah Ta'ala, I'm presenting all of my weaknesses to you. And you are Al-Qawi, Al-Qawi al-Mateen. You are the being of absolute power, of absolute might, of absolute capability. Ya Allah Ta'ala, I ask you to use your power and might and capability from your rahmah, your mercy, your karam, fazl and grace, and strengthen my heart, strengthen my soul, strengthen my spirit, strengthen my emotions, strengthen my feelings. Save me from every anxiety, save me from every stress, save me from every any transgression and worry. Make me steadfast in deen. Give me istiqamat in deen. Give me the urge to turn to you in salah, in dua, in tilawah, recitation of Quran. Give me the urge to serve others. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he taught in hadith that a person should not move and travel in such a situation. And another person, they sent me another, maybe it was the same piece from Shaykh Ashraf Ali Tanvi Matala, and he was actually writing about that, the question he received about that illness at that time. He wrote back and he said that don't leave. The healthy should not leave. Why? Because if the healthy ones leave, the ones who are sick will feel even more sad. So now we're being abandoned. And he said, if the healthy ones leave, who will take care of the sick? Allahu Akbar Kabira. And truly may Allah Ta'ala reward and bless all of those healthcare professionals who are putting their own health and thereby their own lives, because it's much more exposure. And for them, it's not 1%. Allahu Alam what the chances are for them. Much higher chances. They're putting their own health and their own lives on the line to do this service. And this was Shaykh Ashraf Ali Tanvi was writing, that who's going to take care of the people, who's going to serve the people, who's going to bring, now I'm going to use modern words, who's going to bring the groceries home to and food to the homes of those people. Imagine that level of selflessness. That means, what does this mean? That person who is the healthcare worker, or that person who is the relief and humanitarian worker delivering the groceries, they're human. They're scared for themselves. They're scared for their children. They're scared they may, while delivering those groceries, maybe they catch something. They don't know it. They bring it home. Their kid catches it. They're scared. But what is think now? What is enabling them to override that human natural fear? The spirit of service. The spirit of service for humanity. And if they're Muslim, the spirit of service for humanity for the sake of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what are we learning? That there are things, teachings, feelings in our deen that can override these feelings of worry. So the first thing was to channel that feeling of worry in more positive and beneficial ways. And the second was to tap in and try to create and inspire in our hearts other feelings that will override this feeling of worry that many of us are feeling at this time. MashaAllah, it's an incredible, all the teachings of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are incredible. All of the teachings of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam are absolutely incredible. And this is, and may Allah reward those ulama who have those platforms and they're spreading these things, and then all of you, all the ummah who is sharing and spreading, all the du'as that people have gathered and all the incidents from time of Sahaba and historical incidents and the clips and everything. And because I think many of you would have also experienced this, and this is what I felt, that it's so wonderful to get timely guidance from the seerah and sunnah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's so wonderful to see mention of illness. I mean, in the sense that to see how our early Muslims responded to the similar type of illnesses and contagious and spreading illness and disease that we are going through. In other words, it's wonderful to have models. It's wonderful to have precedent. It's wonderful to have seen the response of Salihin and Muttaqeen Mu'mineen and their nasiha and their advice and their guidance on these things. And alhamdulillah, that's a wonder. We should do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of the precedent and all of the past, people who have lived this deen and taught this deen and shared this deen. So this is a time of deep reflection. This is a time for introspection. This is a time of turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now I will add another thing. This is a time now, maybe, okay, maybe not everybody is able to do that relief and humanitarian work, but this is definitely a time to be uh, for support for one's family members, for support for one's friends, because everybody is now observing some level of social isolation, self isolation, and some of you may even be, Allahum, I don't know, in lockdown type situations. Here in Pakistan, currently it has not reached that level. But it's important now, and this is something I think a lot of us, especially those of us with children, are also facing. That it's, having everybody at home all the time. This is another, way for us to try to learn how to interact better with people, how to behave better with people, how to have more sabr and patience with people. And this is also, I think, very revealing for a lot of us, that to what extent our lives and our relationships and our interactions are really based on deen. Because if you have a family and a household where it's very difficult to talk of deen, and that's happening to all of us, right? It's very difficult to talk of deen. Why? Because everybody is just hooked on their screen. And this is revealing for us that what's happened to us. That, I mean, this is something you could read about in the New York Times, that they're telling people these are the best movies to watch and these are the best this to do. And, what's happened to our ummah that we are also falling into this. And this is a wake up call. I mean, maybe the overwhelming majority of us, may Allah Ta'ala keep us all in His hifazah, may not actually get the sickness, but we should all, each and every single one of us, 100% should get the wake up call and look at ourselves and realize that look at what we're doing. And we should all be prepared, the same way that all the public health professionals talk about how they want to learn the lessons from this so that they're better prepared next time. We should also see what was our state of our spirituality, our emotions, our feelings, our capacity, our turning to Allah Ta'ala when the news broke, as the news developed, as chaos and crisis came. How did we react and respond? And most of us, maybe this was the first time for many of us, a lot of us didn't do it very well. But we should sit now and reflect about that on this and think, what can we learn from our own personal individual experience, response, feelings, and emotions to these types of events? And how can we make sure that the next time, because everybody was going to tell you there will be a next time, that when the next time something happens, we are better prepared. We learn the lessons as individuals in terms of our ruhaniya, in terms of our ta'alluq ma'Allah, in terms of our spiritual behavior and worship. We learn the lessons how to behave better. And when you start reflecting now, you don't have to wait for the quote unquote next time to behave better. We can try to practice now. Tomorrow's the day. Tomorrow's the day to have a better emotional response, a better spiritual response, a stronger focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, more direction on our deen. And if we can't do it tomorrow, the day after tomorrow is another chance. And if it doesn't happen after tomorrow, yet again, inshallah, and we'll get another day, will be another chance. And this is how we should be thinking. And this is how we should be planning. So this is a time for a lot of ibadah, a lot of dhikr, a lot of dua, but not just for and about the particular illness known as COVID-19, but generally for all aspects of our life, our afterlife, our hereafter, our akhirah, the qabr, the grave, the day of judgment. And I'm sure this is something that has occurred to every one of us, and many ulama that you would have heard would have mentioned this, that we should reflect on the hadith of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he taught and said, and everything that he said was absolute truth, right? But again, when you experience that truth about yourself, you know it's haqq, but you experience, if you will, the haqqaniyya, the veracity of it. What did Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which hadith am I referring to? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the person who in their heart lies the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah ta'ala will take out from their heart, will free their heart from fear of ghairullah, all that is other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that person who in their heart, they lose the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that person's heart will become filled with fears, any and all multitude of fears of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is sort of an English paraphrase of this hadith, right? Allahu Akbar. Now, if we were to apply this on ourselves, every one of us should be scared, right? And every one of us would be scared in what sense? every one of us would be scared that, if I've been feeling this fear, is it because I don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And in any case, I don't even need to ask this question about myself. I know the answer. I don't fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as much as I should. And so then, again, channel this emotion. So I talked about worry and anxiety. Now another emotion is fear. If due to this epidemic and its spread, we felt fear in our hearts, and again, that's natural. I'm not saying we shouldn't have felt any fear. Now we have to channel that fear, and use this fear and to feel another fear. Use this fear and aspire for that other fear. And that other fear is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fear of the fire of Jahannam, the fear of punishment in the grave, the fear of missing the faraid and wajibat, the fear of failing in my obligations on deen, the fear of lapsing in my behavior and character. So many things that we're supposed to be afraid of. Fear of greater fitnas to come, fear of the fitna of Dajjal. I mean, if you look at the hadith of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is the perfection of the tarbiyah of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Take, for example, the Ashra Mubashra, the 10 Sahaba Kiram, radiyallahu ta'ala anhum ajmain, who Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he promised them, he gave them the glad tidings that Allah Ta'ala has decided and decreed that they will go to Jannah. And those same Sahaba, if you look at the narrators on Hadith, those same narrate that Nabi Kareem taught me that I should make dua after Fard Salah to seek refuge from Adhab Qabr. I mean, look at the incredible tarbiyah. On the one hand, telling that Allah Ta'ala has decided you're going to Jannah. And on the other hand, telling, but you should make dua, what? To be safe from Adhab Qabr. So Allahu Akbar. So somebody who's been promised the eternal ultimate reward and everlasting bliss and happiness and success and salvation, which is known as Jannah. Not even being told, don't just be afraid of Jahannam. Even Adhab Qabr, you should still be making dua to Allah Ta'ala. That may Allah Ta'ala protect us from Adhab Qabr. Allahu Akbar Kabira. This is the true tarbiyah of Nabi Kareem, and only he could do like that. We can just knuckle that, try to learn from those stories and admonish ourselves accordingly. So then what would that mean? Every single time we make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, save us from this illness or any illness, we should make dua to be saved from the adhab al-qabr. We should make dua to be saved from the punishment and the fire of Jahannam.